Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be making a bustier dress, also known as breast cut. So these are the key measurements that are needed. We have shoulder to bust, under bust, and half length, which I'm going to show you here. This right here is shoulder to bust length, and then we have the under bust, and then after this we have the half length, which is there. Then I came up with the breast formula, which I use that makes it easier. It's waist divided by 4 plus 1 divided by 2. And here is a perfect example. My waist is 28, so we're going to use my waist measurements. Yeah. Then the point where you measure the breast formula is the point where your shoulder to bust length stops. So my shoulder to bust length is 11 inches, so I'm going to measure 4 inches at that point where 11 inches stops. Now because this is a strap dress, I'm going to minus 5 inches for the straps. You can make your straps as long or short as you want, but I like mine not too short, not too long. This is the length, which is 17 inches minus the 5 inches for the straps. And then you have the shoulder to bust length, and you have your under bust. So at the point where I measured shoulder to bust, that's where I measured 4 inches. And then right on top, I take away half inches and I make it 3.5 inches. And for under bust, I measured 3 inches and then take it all the way down. Yeah, it's easy as that. So to cut the sides, you have to draw out the same pattern, but this time you have to fold the fabric in such a way that it's enough to cover your whole bust. So we're going to draw the pattern for the bustier and then cut out the bust, under bust, and waist. So we begin. Yeah, after cutting out your fabric, you want to place the middle of the bustier just on the tip of the folded fabric for a little bit of allowance, so you can fold it in. And then you measure the neck. I'm making mine 5 inches, and you measure half inches extra for the straps. And then you measure your armhole. I make mine 8.5. Let's not forget to minus 5 inches. And then at the point where you stop for your armhole, you measure your bust. This right here is my bust. Of course, you have to divide your measurements by 4. Measure your bust. And then 13.5 inches for my under bust. Yeah, and then 17 inches for half length. So for my under bust, measuring 29 inches divided by 4. So that's it right there. And then half length, which is, that's the point where my waist is. So my waist divided by 4, 28 inches divided by 4. So after this, you can just cut out the fabric, and these will make the size for the bustier. Now for the back, the trick is just adding 2 extra inches allowance for your zip. It's as simple as that. So I'm adding 2 inches allowance, and then after that I'm going to measure my bust, under bust, and waist again, same way I measured for the front. So I'm just measuring the length here, 17 inches, and then 2 inches allowance for zip, If this is a fabric that doesn't need zip, you don't need to add allowance to the back. So now this is the neck. You measure from the point where the 2 inches for zip allowance stops. That's the bust. This is the bust. And then you do the same thing you did with the sides of the front for the back. On the bust, which is 29 inches divided by 4. And then waist. Oops. Sorry, I made a mistake there. Yeah, this is the neck. I don't like the back too low, so I'm just making it 6 inches for the neck, 9 of the back. Yeah, these are the straps. I'm making mine 12 inches long. I need it to be 10 inches, but I'm just adding 2 extra inches in case I need the extra inches, in case I change my mind, and just for allowance. So this is one strap, and then this is another. Now for the lower part of the dress, we start measuring. I'm making the length 38, and then I'm adding 1 inch allowance to make it longer. So what I do is, to make it easier, I minus 17 from the length. The 17 that was my half length, I minus it. So I measure from 17, so I don't have to stress myself by calculating. So at that point, you measure the waist. So it's 2 inches allowance, of course. The waist, and then 9 inches for hips. And then at that point, you measure the hips. So right there. And I always like, whenever I'm making pencil skirts or dresses, I always like to take away 1.5 inch or 2 inches at the bottom part to make it really penciled. This time I'm taking off 1.5 inch from my hips for the bottom part. And the last time you wanna see a bad guy doing a rap game like me. So basically for the back, we do the same thing we did for the front. Add 2 inches extra allowance, and then place the front on the back, cut out the pattern. This is so much easier. So just cut it out. And voila! This is how to make a bustier dress. Thank you so much guys for watching. Please make sure you subscribe, and if you have any questions, leave them